Hi friends, so it's been a little while since I've been able to have a chat. We're campaigning for LGBT rights, trans and gender diverse people. So it's been sort of a very busy time for me, the last, probably since July really. And hence that's probably why I haven't been doing a whole lot in the way of videos, and of course my live streaming ability is very limited at the moment due to the very poor download speeds that we have here. That's sort of gotten worse in the last 3 or 4 months. You know, it's become really, really bad, and so it's very difficult for me to actually do any live streams. Anyway, so between going into town all the time to speak to politicians for this particular bill that's coming up, it's already been tabled in the lower house, in Parliament House in Hobart. And you can find a lot of press on it. There'll be a lot of fear-mongering and scaremongering in the press, but the Labor Party and the Speaker of the House, Sue Hickey, have been helping us. They've been working with us, and so things are going along okay. Whether it passes in the upper house is another thing. And today, on top of all of that, I have some sort of a virus that I picked up from mixing with so many people, and some of the very nice politicians we've been meeting with, they've had some sort of virus, and eventually I managed to pick it up too. So I've got cold sores and all sorts of things. I haven't been unwell for a long, long time. Being vegan, it seems to hold me in good stead. But because of all the meeting with all these people that are constantly seem to have viruses, that's what's happened. So I'm very bedraggled today, but I'm going to do a little talk. I just wanted to let you know what I was up to, for those of you who are interested. These reforms will be very progressive reforms, but really they're just protecting the rights of trans people and gender diverse people. So that's why we're doing this, and we've been working very, very hard and constantly meeting with people to sort of bring them up to speed with the legislation, which my partner Dee Dee River she's written most of the legislation to this, and that was one of her jobs in the past, in one of her other lives in Parliament House. She used to write legislation. So she's written some great legislation, and it's had a bit of tweaking from a few other people, but it's basically, yeah, it's been important that she's been a part of it. And so we're hoping that will go well in December, when finally whenever it comes before the upper house. So have good thoughts for us for that. And excuse me, and I feel so bedraggled today, I can't tell you. I spent all yesterday sort of just pretty much laying in bed and watching various, catching up with various political things, political podcasts and stuff. So anyway, what I was going to talk about really was Cindy Sheehan's recent march on the Pentagon. I think we all need to take seriously this anti-war movement. I don't know if we need to have an anti-war movement. I don't know if you have seen Bill Kristol. He's a neocon who was from the project of the New American Century. He helped get us into the Iraq War, and Bill Kristol is he's constantly warmongering. He doesn't like Donald Trump, but he's probably all on board with any warmongering that Donald Trump is doing. but he's totally he totally wants an invasion of Iran. But recently he put on Twitter, openly these people don't have any sort of candidness anymore. They're totally out with it. He said, you know, that we need to do regime change in China. You know, and that's something, of course, that's on the cards for anybody who pays attention to what's happening. You know, what the US has turned to now. The Pentagon has turned its eyes on China and Russia. So to say that is actually in keeping with the Pentagon's new focus. So to say that openly, though, just shows the arrogance and the audacity that he thinks he can actually say that now without any pushback, and he's right. The Democrats are as a warmongering, bloodthirsty bunch as the GOP are, and have been for a very long time. If you paid attention to Obama, he expanded 2 wars to 7. Now there's 8+ wars, and they're trying to cripple Venezuela with sanctions. And Bolton, the Secretary of State, who's a neocon warmonger of the highest order, went to meet the new fascist new fascist leader of Brazil, and for sure that will be a discussion on how to bring down Venezuela, which is a socialist country, how to bring it down, and install somebody who, like they've done in Brazil, really. That was pretty much a coup d'etat, and with US meddling, and the US has meddled in so many countries, literally dozens since World War II, with the help of the CIA. Just look it up on independent news. I can even post a meme that sort of shows how much meddling and how many governments and democratically elected governments they've overthrown and been successful. So anyway, for anybody who sort of, you know, isn't just watching mainstream media, you would already know that. And I assume most of the people who watch my channel probably already are in the know about this. I really don't do this channel as some sort of education effort for people who aren't following independent news. It's really just my way of actually just, when I feel something needs to be talked about, I do it. I sort of don't follow, I don't talk about every single thing that happens, but I do it for myself, really, because, and I do it that maybe somebody will watch that didn't really know about something, or they'll go and investigate some of the independent news that I mentioned. But anyway, back to China, that's a dire thing, that it's so out there now in the open. You just know that that's something they're going to be moving towards, and they have been for a while now, but moving towards invading China, and or Russia, and or Iran, and or Venezuela. I mean, the list just goes on and on. It's just insane. But the other important thing that I've talked about before, and a couple of videos ago, blogs ago, I talked about Yemen and the genocide that's happening in Yemen. There's a genocide that's been happening in Yemen now for 3+ years, and it's a Saudi-led genocide supported by the US, fueling planes in the air. It was doing that until the Saudis learned to do it themselves, and then they told the US they didn't need to do it, and the US boasts, oh, we've stopped supporting the Saudis with their bombing campaign of Yemen. That's not true. But anyway, that's just for the media, for us, the public, to swallow. But the US is still involved in that, and they were doing stuff on the ground, also selling hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons to the Saudis. Without US empire, this genocide in Yemen couldn't exist. And the Saudis are a family that is a brutal family, and they're a monarchy, and they're not happy. They weren't happy with the leader who's in Yemen, and so this is another coup d'etat. They don't want a democracy in Yemen, and they want resources from Yemen. So the US is happy to assist them in that genocide, and they literally are committing a genocide. One child is dying every 10 minutes. There's literally tens of thousands of children now have died as a result of this genocide. So, you know, this is something that if we don't speak out about it, we're discharging our moral responsibility to psychopaths because the mainstream media barely mentions it. The Congress, hardly anybody mentions it, and if they do, it's kind of something that flows in and out, and that's the end of it. I think Sanders is probably the only one Bernie Sanders is the only one that mentioned it, and what took him so long? It's been going on for 3 years. You know, it's sort of an appalling situation. And if you've seen any of the images, there's just children skeletal, and there'll literally be 1 million that are, even if something was done to help them. The UN has said they're going to try and get humanitarian efforts, more efforts for food and stuff. But the Saudis have been bombing the port of Hodeidah, which is where most of their food comes through in Yemen. And they've been bombing infrastructure like hospitals and all sorts of things. I mean, it is a genocide happening in Yemen right now. And where do we hear about it? My government, even when I mention it, I ring up politicians in the Australian government, it's just this sort of like, it's just dreadful. I feel like I've walked into some sort of like somebody's taken over people's moral, like people don't seem to have any moral compass in politics at all. I mean, a genocide doesn't even move them. And it's all because all these politicians are frightened of the US. Here in Australia, we're just a US lackey. They won't speak out for our own citizen, Julian Assange, for fear of some repercussions from the US. And they're just doing what's politically expedient. This is the sort of government that we have here. It's just a neoliberal or neo-economy in the current government even. Both sides, both major parties are problematic. Even the Green Party is problematic because they don't talk about war. They don't push back against war, really. They don't talk about Assange and how he needs to, he's in a dire situation in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and he could be extradited any time, and they'll throw him in prison for his whole, like for the rest of his life. They may torture him and they'll just throw away the key. It'll be a kangaroo court. And the Australian government doesn't seem to, they don't give a toss. So, you know, we have to, going back to this anti-war movement, we have to have an anti-war movement, an anti-imperialist movement in Australia and around the world. And we also have to join, I believe, join the yellow vests in France that did these major disruptions of French society. Recently there was 2,000 protests all over France, and they're pushing for social inequality. Hopefully there won't be any agents provocateurs that jump in and try and turn it into some sort of violent thing, so that to kind of destroy the movement. But it's called, just look it up online, France Yellow Vests. And I think we should all join that. We should all get some yellow vests. They're like fluorescent yellow vests that workers use, and all start, you know, different chapters of this all around the world, because social inequality is just ridiculous now, absolutely ridiculous. Here in Australia, we have homeless people, and we have had for a while, but it's getting worse and worse. And we pay people that are unemployed. We have some social welfare here, but we pay people that are unemployed a sort of an amount of money that is completely untenable for living. And the governments don't seem to care, although even the Labor Party that's supposed to be more left, it's actually more centrist, and it won't even sort of make you won't even say that it will increase New Start, the unemployment benefits for people that are unemployed. There's built-in unemployment in most sovereign countries. There's no reason why we can't have a federal job guarantee, and I don't mean slave labor or anything. I mean jobs, if people want to work, that they can find a job. You know, and we can do that, and I invite you to look at the hashtag LEARN, L-E-A-R-N, MMT, M for Mary, T for Tom. Look that up and find out about MMT, because we're living in a sovereign economy in Australia and the United States and the UK and Canada, and the government literally cannot go broke. It's a currency issuer, and they can afford, as long as there's enough resources, they can afford everything that we need, including free healthcare. So look up MMT. It's just a description of the operational reality of any sovereign economy. It's not some sort of newfangled thing or something that needs to be implemented. It's just how modern sovereign economies work. So look that up. I'll leave a link to some resources. But anyway, back to the anti-war, anti-imperialist movement and a desperate need for that. We desperately need an anti-war, anti-imperialist movement. And we also need to join, because we have to get out from behind our devices and actually get out onto the streets. There's no, we need to do that now. We've been needing to do that for a while, but we need to do that now. And that means organizing local groups and stuff. Because imperialism is, it's leading us closer to nuclear war. The US is also destroying any sorts of democracies around the world so that it can have full spectrum dominance. And so we have to push against that. We have to push against that. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to say. I hope that you will look at that French movement, the yellow vests, and check it out, and let's think about doing something like that. I think that's a great thing to get on board with, to push against the social inequality. Oligarchs seem to be quite happy with us being serfs and them being lords at this point. So if we just want that to go that way, let's just do nothing. If we actually want a world that's livable and is tenable, is something that we can have some sort of quality of life and happiness, then we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to get out and do something. Okay, and we have to be anti-war and anti-imperialist. And it doesn't mean that when our favorite party gets in office, we don't say anything. And then when they're not in office, then we say something, like they do in the US. A lot of faux liberals, when Obama was in office, everybody went to sleep for 8 years and he expanded 2 wars to 8. That's not an anti-imperialist, anti-war movement. So we have to, doesn't matter who's in office, we have to push against that. And the same with me, here in Australia. I don't see anything from any of the Green Party, the Australian Labor Party, or this awful, very, very right-wing, racist Liberal Party that we have at present that's ruling the country. And mind you, the Labor Party has been dreadful with this detention of asylum seekers on Nauru and refusing to sort of like take those poor people, including children, off that dreadful detention center in Nauru. They're just escaping our imperialist wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and wherever, and here, this is how we treat them. And now the only way they can get off is to suicide or harm themselves, and that doesn't even, harming themselves doesn't even get them out of there. Children are psychologically damaged, and so are the people there. So this is what both sides of the Australian government, the Labor Party and the Liberal Party, both of them support this dreadful thing. I mean, it's appalling. I cannot believe this is the sort of governments and parties and politicians we have. So it's up to us to do something now and no longer wait. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So I hope this finds you well. I hope you're feeling better than I am today. I hope that you'll join me again at Vegan Trove, VEGANTROVE, on YouTube, and you can. I have a Facebook page, but the algorithms are so dreadful there, it doesn't get any traction. So I'm not even going to bother telling you what that is. But just look out for Faint Signals from Vega. Anyway, so my name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.